means tonight, my comfort is to tell the youth and the young adults of the UPCI that we believe in you. There is a place and a work for you. You matter. You are vital. But the call tonight and the challenge tonight is to tell the youth and the young adults, you must not measure your kingdom commitment by your peers, but by the legacy of profound sacrifice that is buried in the very fabric of this great organization. Over the next 75 years, there must be continued generations of missionaries and church planners and evangelists who are just as dedicated to the work of God as John was, whose stories will be told a generation from now. George, we're going to be talking about you. So, young man, I pose the question to you. What will you do with 75 years of history of the United Pentecostal Church behind you? What will you do with innumerable sacrifices that have been made to bring us where we are? Young lady, what will you give? Can you place your life on an altar and serve Him passionately and serve Him first? Will you start a P7 club? Will you teach a home Bible study? Will you go on an AYC trip? Will you answer God's call to be a preacher and build the church for decades to come? Can you follow His call to be an engineer or a businessman or a laborer or a professional and bless your local church as a faithful saint of God? I ask you a simple question. When you see the sacrifices that have been made by those that came before, can you lay your life alongside theirs and say, my commitment matches theirs? George, John's life and John's death called you to an altar tonight. 75 years of the UPCI's history depends on your willingness to mirror the sacrifices that have made it what it is. And so in your home or in your youth room or in your church or wherever you're watching this, there has to be an altar. You know why? Because John always had an altar. You want to know why Werner Larson had that kind of commitment in Colombia? He had an altar. You want to know why Brother Janssen, 65 years old, said, I got to start another church? He had an altar. You want to know what's going to shape and compel and drive your life? You got to have an altar. So I'm asking you, I know this is a different way to have church. It's a different way to have conference. You're watching a screen and we're not there in person. But I plead with you, let your response be measured not by the media, but by John. Let your response be measured not by the methodology, but by the sacrifice of those who came before us. And I plead with you where you are right now to move from your chair, move from where you are, even if it's nothing more than just getting down in front of that chair and getting on your knees. But could you take a quick look over at John's grave and say, I'm George, and I have to live in a way that measures up to what he gave. I'm asking young people all across North America and around the world that may be watching. The altar is now. The kingdom needs you. The United Pentecostal Church needs you. And I plead with you to move and set up an altar where you are this moment and pray that your life would do honor to all those who came before us, because the world and the United Pentecostal Church is waiting on you. Come on, pray. Go ahead.
I want more of you, God.
Pray.
I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul.
Reach to Him.
I can't contain, I can't control.
Reach to Him.
I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down.
Go ahead, George. Go ahead, George. Pray prayers like John prayed. Go ahead and make commitments like John made. Go ahead and do what your elders did and give your life to Him.
Set a fire down